Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Someone who would fight like heck for our student athletes and our coaches. And maybe most important to me, somebody who wanted to be on Team Nebraska, who understands the special place this is and the special people that we have here, and who understands what a privilege and a responsibility it is to wear the red hat, and who would lead us with integrity and competitiveness. So I'm glad to say we found that guy in Troy Dannon. Troy, welcome to Nebraska.
I didn't think I had another move when I went to Washington. I didn't go to Washington to move. But coming here, it's more than locale, and the people and the place is a lot of this. But when you put people, place, and the ability to do everything that you aspire to do professionally, they're starting other places.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's going on?
You know me, man. Just trying to make it. Just a day, just an ordinary day.
The salt's throwing me, man. I know you're trying to get the electrolytes.
It's throwing you?
I'm just sitting here and I'm
What?
I'm struggling with it.
What's the matter?
Well, that's too much.
No, we're doing okay.
That's too much. So did your mom ever make you when you were a kid?
Gargle warm salt water?
Yeah, if you had like a sore throat or 100%.
something. 100%.
Yeah, so I'm getting kind of like a gag reflex thing here, like reminiscing.
I can appreciate that because I'm a gag reflex guy.
Like I just.
But usually with me, it's with smells.
Sure, yeah, but I just have a very vivid memory of that kind of like the warm salt water, and it's just I want nothing to do with it.
You gonna be all right? You seem very hurt right now.
No, I'm okay. I'm concerned for you mostly.
I care.
You seem very hurt right now.
You.
I thought it was I Swear.
No, this is one of those little R&B bands that like popped up in the 80s and 90s when everybody else was like trying to find the vibe. I can't remember who it is. It might have been Babyface. I don't know.
I just the salt water, so I'm struggling.
Well, I'm really so normally I'm better about El Snaggerino.
Yeah, you got a little.
Normally I'm better about doing my prep at home.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little off kilter there, so it's
all right. You gotta do what you gotta do.
We're on the struggle bus.
That's okay.
Yeah,
we'll get it.
That's fine.
It's totally fine.
Yeah, thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
I haven't called him Tony yet, which is good.
Very good. You were thinking of Tandoori, aren't you?
No, I'm thinking of
that wasn't it.
Oh, Yogurt Man.
Oh, okay. The Yogurt Man's name Tori?
I don't know.
Or the Yogurt Man's name Troy?
I still don't know how I'm supposed to get from Tandoori.
I told you.
To Troy.
Oi. Think of the oi sound. Tandoori.
That's not.
I want you to be proud.
You saying Tandoori in like Boston? What are you doing?
Oh man,
that's not a real thing.
Well, you know how sometimes radio folks like to make up accents, so sometimes I succumb.
You go full Southie on me.
If I fall victim,
we will embrace it.
Who's making up accents?
Oh, I don't know. What's so funny?
I'm just gonna come in with a stereotypical Indian accent.
I don't appreciate.
You're not gonna know what to do.
I don't appreciate either one of you laughing this morning.
I'm just sitting here and hem and haw. Nothing comes to the top of my mind.
Nothing comes to the top of my mind either, except
nothing compares.
We've got a good show for you here today. Coming up at 8:00, we've got Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. 8:30, we've got Andy Kendeigh from KETV. 8:45, normally our Thursday guest, Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider. He's going to be today because he's doing a little traveling. And then coming up at 9 a.m., we've got our guy Jacob Padilla of Hurrdat Sports.
How do you think old Flaky Jake is doing this morning?
I think he's probably asleep still.
You guys had any recent spats the last couple of days?
No, just the one about Kalkbrenner versus McDermott. But I was on his side on that one, so that's good. But that's it. That's the only. We haven't had any real. We had a little disagreement on Frankie yesterday.
Really?
Him and I. I don't think he can play the 3.
Yeah, it's such. Are you talking about with Creighton or in general?
For if he's going to go to the high major level, I don't think he can play the 3.
So it's interesting because I think the whole positionless thing may give you some. It's like female makeup, or I guess it's just makeup these days, but like cover up. So,
it's concealer.
Yeah. Whomever uses it, whatever.
I mean, listen, if everybody gets blemishes, Stevie, everybody.
There's some cover up with
if Kalkbrenner comes back. If Kalkbrenner comes back, you can get away with him at 3, I think. Or if you go, I don't know how interested they are, but if they go get like a rim protector, like a William Kyle or somebody that can protect the rim, then you can get away, I think, more with Fiddler at the 3. If you don't have anybody on that back end, like if they're counting on Francisco to be Frederick King to be the 5 next year, or they're trying to move Trout to the 5, like a stretch 5, I don't think you can get away with a non-athletic wing.
Yeah, so defensively, I think they'll have to work around that, but I do think he's somebody that
offensively fits.
They definitely highly covet.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I think you figure out a way to make that work. And Frankie's interesting, right?
And maybe they know something about Kalkbrenner I don't already.
Yeah, well, that's typically the case. They
Sure.
have inside tracks.
Well,
but that doesn't mean
right
that he's coming back or not, though. So I'm vibing with you. Like, I don't know.
It makes way more sense to me if Kalkbrenner's covering you back there, because it's not like, especially last year, I thought Baylor got a lot better defensively.
So
this year.
Is there a team you think that would come in the NBA and just literally make a play for a backup center? Because that's really what you're talking about. And if Kalk doesn't feel that, I mean, life's pretty good for him here. I'm just saying.
No, I know. I kind of lean toward, and I don't have any inside information here. I think there's a pretty good chance he comes back.
Yeah.
Because
maybe make a run at being a 4-for-4 guy in terms of
defensive player of the year.
That and tournament runs.
Yeah. 5 for 5.
That's right.
Point. Yeah.
That's right.
Which, I mean, that's an untouchable record then at that point, right?
Yep, cemented.
So
now that would be very hard to do.
Sure.
Because they'll have some stuff to replace, but
I think making the tournament is on the table again next year, especially if he's back.
And I actually think that's at the frontal lobe of what Frankie wants to do. I think he wants to play meaningful games in March.
Which I think that's a totally reasonable ask.
Yeah.
I do worry offensively. I don't really have any concerns.
He's extremely competitive too, so it'd be interesting to see if he does wind up at Creighton, like the off-season conditioning and being with those guys and
how much better can Jeremy Anderson make him?
And he's already a gym rat,
right? But we saw Baylor Shireman totally transform his body in the offseason, right? But we didn't see it from SDSU to Creighton the first year. We saw it from Creighton to Creighton the second year. So I don't know if we can expect that kind of jump.
Yeah,
in
people
one
are
offseason
different
from Frankie. Like, that's what I mean. I don't know. I think he could help for sure because Jeremy's incredible what he does. But that to me is a question. Can he get his lateral quickness up a little bit? Can he get Isaac Trout's lateral quickness up a little bit after coming off the transfer from Virginia?
Yeah, the portal was interesting yesterday.
Yeah, St. Thomas goes in, which I think we knew was coming.
Yeah.
He's also
forgot he was here yesterday.
Also putting his name in the draft, which I think that's an evaluation thing more than anything.
Wait, I don't even know if that was public.
It was. I saw it on Sauter put it out.
Oh yeah, he probably talked to the same guy.
Yeah. So I think for Saint, that's more of a fact-finding mission, and then try and bounce up to a Power 5 level and show he can produce at that same level or close to that he did at Northern Colorado.
How about what happened at SDSU on the heels of our talks the last couple of days about what you want to do as a mid-major in terms of recruiting?
Yeah, you lose Zeke.
So you lose Mayo and
William
Kyle the third.
Yeah, which are your two best players.
Yeah.
That's a tough. I mean, listen, it's tough out here for mid-majors, right?
Yeah.
But SDSU has also shown the ability to continually find and develop talent and still be good.
And maybe, we talk about all these other schools that may be making a run at Frankie. I mean, maybe he goes back to Omaha.
Who?
Frankie.
Maybe.
Yeah. So you just don't know.
You don't. I would be surprised.
I would too, but I wouldn't totally close the door
on Omaha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think I don't know what else he has to prove in the Summit League.
Yeah, I just
assuming because most of these guys, right?
Maybe not so much loyalty, but you started on a mission.
Yeah. Well, and that's something I heard about Frankie is It was kind of a, hey, you didn't want me then, you can't have me now type situation. But I also think there's a
I think that's past. I agree with you early, maybe.
Okay,
Like
fair.
Like when these conversations came up maybe a year ago.
Mhm.
But I think
We're
that
past
ship
that
is,
now.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have to get past that if your goal is to play professional basketball.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's a lot of, pride takes you so far, but at some point you have to be pragmatic.
Isn't that funny? Where it's like at some point well, I got this. I can do this.
You're spiting yourself.
And
though,
then,
point.
and then all of a sudden there's this point of realization. It's like,
your principles become harmful to you.
There's an end where it can justify me taking some different means.
Also, I think there has to be a self-awareness too there, right?
Yeah.
That where, like, if Frankie Fiddler had gone to a high major out of high school, we're probably not talking about Frankie Fiddler right now, right? I mean,
maybe
there's a chance. I mean, I'm not even picking on Frankie. I thought the same thing with Doug McDermott coming out of, like, if Doug had gone to a Power 5, like he had Greg stayed at Iowa State and Doug went to Iowa State, does he get the chance to become who he became?
Yeah, the butterfly effect thing is always weird. In
It's
sports.
tricky, right? But
I typically don't go down that road because I don't know. Like at the end of the day, like what's my point, right? Am I trying to psych myself out? Like, why do you allow yourself to go there?
So here's why, is because if your pride is telling you that you were good enough coming out of high school,
body.
No, not my mind, my pride
is telling you no.
Is telling me no. Like,
and we can't even use those guys anymore and do their songs.
We can't.
No, and basically that'll be everybody from
Diddy,
the 90s.
No Kelly.
We can't do anything.
Yeah, I think, has Usher been canceled yet? Are we okay there?
Well, allegedly he was a victim.
Well, it's okay to listen to the victims. So.
I don't know, man, because there's conflicting stories.
Okay, well, I don't know.
Are you a guilty guy? It depends on who you listen to.
I don't know. Maybe we'll just sing gospel music from now on.
Can't even do that if it's. Is
true.
TG Jake singing?
I don't know.
I don't
Creflo Dollar.
Who's the guy that was going to the airport? And he had the crazy eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, "Don't you ever say that again."
About his private plane and stuff.
Yeah, the super pastor. What's his name?
Copeland.
Yeah.
Kenneth Copeland.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got some crazy eyes.
It was weird.
Yeah, it's a little strange. I need this private plane. Doing the Lord's work.
Okay.
It's like, man,
we're just knocking out bingo card after
be honest,
bingo
man.
card.
Just be like, you know what? I like money, and this is what I'm good at. Like, here we go. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Doing some good things.
Yes, he is.
No, I think there needs to be, the reason I bring up the butterfly effect of where you go type thing is because if you truly felt like you were this good coming out of high school and were passed over, that's different in terms of your pride than if you understand, hey, I developed into a high major player while at Omaha. I wasn't that coming out of Bellevue West.
Yeah.
So that's why it's different, right? Because I don't know that Frankie Fiddler was passed over. I think that's where he was at the time, right? Same thing with Baylor. Yeah. I don't think Baylor was necessarily passed over. That's where he was at the time. And then you develop into a different type of guy, and that's awesome. That's great for everybody. But it's hard to have that chip on your shoulder if you've got self-awareness about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that everybody has that, right? Like, Danny Woodhead's a good example of a guy that probably got passed over. That guy was good out of the gate. Maybe he doesn't get an opportunity at Nebraska the way we would have wanted him to, but he could have gone and played Division I football somewhere and been good, I think, right away.
Mm-hmm.
That's a guy that maybe has a chip on his shoulder for being passed over. I don't know that Frankie is in that same category. Does that make sense?
Although for him, again, it's kind of weird to be getting into the mind, but for the sake of the discussion, sure, unless coming out of high school, you think you're capable of something someday, right?
Sure.
So
yeah,
that's part of it,
right?
Because you seldom cap yourself at that age and thinking, well, this is about right for me. You know what I mean? So I think everybody has some of that.
Sure.
In them.
I think there's a part of it that is you'd like people to believe in you and project what you can be, right? But I think you have to be aware of kind of what you are too.
It's awful,
and that's hard. It's hard to have the confidence,
especially from where we are talking about folks coming out of high school. Like we try to instill it, and it's difficult.
And it's hard having the confidence in yourself to perform at any level and then be, I don't know, if realistic, pragmatic, humble enough to understand, hey, this is where I'm at right now. Like, that's a really challenging balance to strike. And I mean, most adults can't do it, so I don't necessarily expect a 17-year-old to do it. But I say all that to say I'm glad that Frankie has moved past the if not then, why now?
Yeah.
Part of his.
I just don't think that's really in his repertoire.
Which is good.
Now, maybe that would be closer to somebody like Chucky, but that situation was
totally different.
Totally different.
Yeah.
How it was kind of handled during the coaching change, and he's not even in the portal yet. But I mean, speaking of Nebraska, we did see that. I mean, they've obviously reached out to William Kyle III. There's a couple of openings now with
Eli Rice.
So you've got Rice, you've got Lloyd, and now Keita, Blaze entering the portal.
William Kyle seems like a really good fit at Nebraska.
Yes, he does.
He seems like a perfect. I was talking to Sauter. Seems like a really kind of a perfect replacement for Josiah Alec, but a little bit better at some of the things like the rim running, the rim protection, the rebounding.
Offensively, for sure.
Yeah, and he's not going to be he's not going to stretch the floor like Josiah tried to sometimes. I wasn't super comfortable when Josiah tried to do that, but he's that classic rim running, rim protecting big, which I think is ideal for Nebraska, especially, we saw it against Texas A&M, right? Where they sometimes struggle to stay in front of people. As you try and upgrade your perimeter athleticism, having a rim protector covers a lot of sins.
Yeah, I cheer for him a ton. We'll talk to Jacob at 9. William Kyle is a guy that, as long as Jacob and I have been doing preps, so I don't know, a handful of years now, since probably William's sophomore year, he's just kind of become a favorite. Plus, I've seen him since he was young.
Yeah.
So I've seen the evolution, and it's funny. Like I just want to. I go back and I watch how dads in particular sometimes handle their sons, and go back to his dad and say, you know what? I appreciate how you did it, because he was he didn't always play on the top teams or the best guys teams as a young kid.
Yeah,
was because he's playing with a lot of the Bellevue teams, and his dad coached him really hard. And I always like to watch those dynamics because I like to see what happens down the road.
React.
And it worked. Like he wanted the best for him, and I think it's just interesting. There's a couple of dads. Coincidentally, they both happen to be Bellevue guys. But I watched Jaden Jackson's dad. I watch William Kyle III's dad. I watch a lot of how dads are with
how they operate
their sons.
Yeah.
Some of it was, you take mental notes. Like, could I use that? Does that work for me? Or vice versa. But it's just really, really interesting. And especially as of late, where you have a lot of young people whose dads played.
It does seem a lot more common now,
right?
Especially at a high level.
Yeah,
right.
So
a lot of legacy guys.
So that's just Dave and Christian Jones with Lisa, and there's just lots of case studies. I told you all the notes I took with Noonan and Cluster and some of these guys, just constantly picking their brains, and I know sometimes people roll their eyes a little bit, but when it's a positive fashion. I used to talk to Urban Nolan about it sometimes with his kids, especially during his oldest recruiting process before he was going to go to Air Force. And it's just the dynamics can be complicated, but when they hit, because then you get to see these cool relationships form between kids, and especially going forward, that whole family unit is a big deal, because we're at a pretty critical stage, right? In the country. So it's I like to see those things work. But I would tell William's dad, man, job well done. Because I always say this, man, deep down, kids want discipline. I think they want to be pushed. They want to be led.
Yeah, I don't know that most kids would put it in those terms, but I think structure for sure.
Neither would adults, but they want it.
Yeah, like because as a society and people in general, we like to know what's expected of us,
Mhm.
what is acceptable, what's like we do better with boundaries of knowing our surroundings, of knowing where we're supposed to go, what we're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
Now, some people push against that, but most people are more productive when they have that in place, right? That being said, moving on to Troy Dannon yesterday at the press conference, I think there is a really good chance, based on what he was saying, that he provides almost a collaborative structure with Coach Rule. I know technically he's his boss. It doesn't necessarily
it didn't come across that way.
Yeah, it doesn't really feel like it's a typical boss employee situation. It feels more like a collaboration. And I think if you're an AD at Nebraska and you've got a coach like Coach Rule, you need to understand your place in that.
Yeah, it's very, very
it's a tricky situation.
It is kind of difficult, right? Because again, you don't want absolute power to corrupt absolutely. So you're trusting that whatever the mindset and the visions and the things that are casted that people want done, like the power source of the catalyst is from a pure and good place, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so there's always that dynamic, because I think checks and balances are good.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the difference between like a monarchy and a democracy, right? Monarchies work great when you've got a good king.
Mm-hmm.
Like the problem is you cannot guarantee you will have a good king.
Yep.
Right? The reason you have democracy is like, yeah, you may not always have good leaders, but there are things to limit the damage they can do.
And there were some similarities, I think, in if you're going to compare and contrast current and former bosses, the whole bit, like doing things on the outside to allow coaches to do things on the inside.
Yeah, he used the snowplow. Trev used the moat, but it's the same idea.
Same idea.
Different imagery. But they're talking about the same things.
So I totally get that. I think some of the stark differences we're embracing, 1890 and in the NIL. So we still don't know towards the in-house, out-of-house thing, but he said something I think that's very smart. And it's weird because we talked about this last week, and I kind of said it in passing. I'm like, so why can't we just support 1890 now? Remember that? And I was like, even if you think it's gonna change, like it
hasn't yet.
It's what we have now. Yeah. Like what? And I said it a couple times just because I know that's it happens to be 1890, so I'm using 1890. Yeah. But whatever the NIL is that's doing work for you,
the actual people don't like the actual entity doesn't matter.
Do that, right? Because that ultimately is good.
That'll lead to
for the university. Yeah, and so we got that part of it, and then I also liked, and we'll get to a lot of the quotes. There was some wait and see on some things, like I don't know enough, which I liked.
On a big one, there's a big topic that he said we're gonna have to dig into a little bit.
But I did like the fight concept and sitting at the table. That was kind of Nebraska wants to put their hands up. They believe that they are something truly special, and their job is to get everybody else to believe it.
We will get into more of Troy Dannon's introductory press conference as Nebraska's new AD next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I think the world is going to revolve around the Big Ten and the SEC. I think we saw it with the college football playoff revenue distribution model that came out. I'm really impressed with Commissioner Petitti. I've been around a lot of commissioners. I love his vision. I love his aggressiveness. You want to be at the place. I'll use the Thanksgiving analogy. I sat at the kids' table for a long time. I wanted to be at the grown-ups table, and not in a negative way, but the Big Ten is the table to sit at, because that's where decisions will be made. That's where the future will be determined, and that's where fate will be set. And you want to be in those positions rather than wait for somebody else to determine those things for you.
We're back here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio, live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're on the Pillar Exterior stage. Did you still sit at the kid table? You sit at the grown-up table Thanksgiving?
It just depends. Like a couple years ago,
Yeah.
Sometimes I would manage all the little grandkids and kids.
Yeah.
So my mom wasn't stressed.
Chaperone a little bit.
But typically, if I'm at my mom's, I sit where she used to sit, and she sits where my dad sits.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird, but I think she just sits on that end of the table when she's by herself, if she's eating.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Sometimes, but it's like my personality. Sometimes I'm uniquely equipped to be a child, and on a few occasions, I can be an adult. It's kind of a crapshoot
when you have to.
Yeah.
No, I thought there was a lot of interesting stuff that Troy Dannon said yesterday, the yogurt man.
And by the way,
yeah,
has anybody seen Troy Dannon and Ron Doetzler
in the same room?
In the same room
at the same time?
No, I'm serious.
They're nearly identical.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, like doppelganger. I think.
I mean, he looks just like
he looks
just like Doetzler.
Yeah, he really does.
I almost had to take a double take. I'm like, that's my guy.
You did.
Oh wait,
you showed me a side by side at one point.
It's crazy.
It is. It's a little nuts. So maybe it's his alter ego. Maybe we've got a Clark Kent Superman situation going on here. I don't know.
Well, we've been on the Bellevue hype train this morning.
I will say,
so maybe it's fitting for a Doetzler reference.
Speaking of fitting, I'm not trying to be a hater.
Yes, you are.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah. I always love those. Those are my favorite.
But I'm not trying to be a hater.
I'm not trying to insert blank. Yes, most people are.
I mean, I'm trying to be helpful here.
Okay.
It may come off as being a hater, but I'm trying to be helpful.
Uh-huh.
Mr. AD Yogurt Man Troy Dannon.
Yes.
Come see me about making sure your suits fit, okay?
Oh, here we go.
I mean, listen, it was not the high collars on the suit, like the high lapels.
Man's been in Lincoln like 2.5 days.
I'm just saying he didn't have a nice suit in Washington.
It depends.
I'm just
maybe all the jet setting, he's dropped about 18 pounds.
Maybe just like come see your boy.
It is not optional.
Yeah,
we can have a discussion. I'll do a free consult.
I liked that the family had gear. They were geared up.
They were very excited about the volleyball jersey.
How long were you waiting for that intro? It's not like. Did you think we were going to hear from the governor?
No, I'm glad you brought that up.
Why?
Why is he there? It's a little weird.
I mean, I didn't look at it like that,
but it's a little weird, right?
So do you know what I thought of like immediately?
What?
Is I feel like he's been in that world.
Yeah, he was the
longer than he's been a governor.
For sure. But I think you also have to recognize like, hey, that's not my job anymore.
That's tough.
I'm just saying for all the hand wringing we had about
let me ask you something.
Okay.
That's interesting. Because at first, so you know what my response to that is? Shouldn't your governor know what your highest paid employees are doing?
Sure.
Okay.
But no and be
and I know it's not that simple. That was just I'm just telling you, like that's like my immediate reaction.
Do you want Jim Pillen involved with hiring football coaches and basketball coaches?
No.
So, I mean, how is that different?
Because I don't know if yesterday symbolizes that.
No, but if you're talking about highest paid employees, right, then, I mean, the football coach and basketball coach make more than the AD.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about the governor knowing about the highest paid state employees.
Man, I think I would have some interest.
Interest, yes, but there needs to be people in place to be like, hey, we appreciate you being supportive.
Okay, I could see that.
This isn't your job.
I could see that.
Like, when you've got governors involved with, I mean, it seems like he was involved in the hiring process of Troy Dannon.
You don't think
that's right?
You don't think Kim Reynolds is putting together staffs?
I mean, maybe she is, but should she be?
I'm kidding.
Like, that's my question. That's a weird place to insert yourself. Yeah. I get his background may warrant it, but again, this goes back to the good king, bad king analogy, right?
Yeah.
Some governors have the expertise and background that it probably makes sense that they're talking to an AD.
Yeah.
But then does that set the precedence that all governors get to talk about the AD?
I wasn't really, that never even crossed my mind. I just wanted it to get going.
I did too.
That was kind of my thing. Like,
so I watched it live and then I watched it again last night to take notes on it. And when I watched it again, I'm like, this is weird. Why is he, like, I get why he's there, right? But why is he talking? Why was he involved to the degree that he was? I mean, I understand if maybe you want to call him in as like, hey, we got a closer here. But it seemed like he was pretty involved in the process.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, doesn't he have other stuff to do?
I don't know.
It struck me as really weird. And it can set a really odd precedent.
I don't know.
Would you have wanted Governor Ricketts to be involved there? Because he doesn't have the background that Pillen does. Right?
No, so maybe that's more to my point than not, is because of the familiarity. He's done the previous stuff longer than he was in politics, but
once you get into politics,
I know.
And especially,
so that's not where I thought you were going. I thought you were going to wonder why Kvorik talked so long, because I just kind of I'm just trying to go back to, and I don't remember them all.
I don't either
super well,
but like, hey, here's your new AD. Like,
yeah. But now you brought the Pillen thing is interesting, because I didn't really. I think I probably like him, and I'm going to say more than most, but I think locally, because I do think he wants what's best for, like.
I don't know that he's been a problem in terms of the university.
Yeah,
like I think he.
Now we'll see what happens when it comes to cuts in a couple of these bills.
Yeah, and I don't know
spending,
right,
but it's early.
But I didn't really have a problem with his. It seemed like his role in the Trev thing would have been on the side of keeping Trev and all that kind of stuff. It seemed like.
Well, let me ask you something. If you're okay with the call to action, then you have to be okay with yesterday. That's the way that I look at it, because he got the ball rolling with both.
There's a difference between saying, hey, guys, you were elected to do this job. I need you to do that job.
Yeah.
Versus saying, hey, let me get on the phone with Dr. Gold here to see if we can get this thing done. That's different to me.
Okay.
That's where I make the distinction. If he had,
me not so much, because I don't.
If I
want results like that, I'm not sure I'm going to get I'm going to pick and choose my spots.
I think you have to, though, with a position of that, with that type of position, with that visibility, with the concerns that were already existing about educational positions and university positions being politicized.
You know what I think to myself?
What's that?
I'll take all the help we can get.
Sure.
That's kind of how I look at it.
But support and influence are different.
Understood.
Right?
Yeah, because you don't want to politicize it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's already a concern with the Board of Regents, right? Mm-hmm. So support, 100%. Let's get support in there. But influence is different. Now, here's the problem, is some people won't give their support unless they have influence.
Oh, typically. Unfortunately, I found that out the hard way yesterday. But yeah, man, it's funny you bring that up. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. Most people, if they want to support you, want to have a say.
Yep.
And that's not real support.
Yep.
It's not. Real support is, hey, maybe I've got these ideas, but I trust you.
Yep.
Like, real support is what we saw Troy Dannon give for Matt Rule yesterday.
Definitely hit home yesterday. I agree.
Right.
And I think it's going to be great for the game.
Yep.
Troy Dannon was like, hey, part of the reason I'm here is because of Matt Rule.
Yeah.
Part of my job.
Sometimes you think people that support you are just supporting you to support you. And then at the end of the day, you realize
no, they wanted to say.
They want some control.
They want influence.
They want some influence. They want some say. Yeah,
which is
100%.
Kind of where
But I didn't. Is that where you landed the plane yesterday?
With Pillen, maybe not with Dannon. With Dannon, I go, that guy's the guy that's there to support Matt Rule, and that he even says, "Hey, Coach, you tell me what the obstacles are. I'll get them out of the way. I'm not going to decide what they are. You tell me what's the problem."
That even as a football guy, like doing those, like looking into it, that I think he wants all the sports. He strikes me as an all sports kind of guy.
Yeah, rising tide. I think that's 100% true. We will continue. Jesse, stay on the line here. We will get your thoughts on William Kyle next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
In those rooms, they are frightfully provincial. Those who fight successfully fight on behalf of the whole, not on behalf of their own. It's incumbent upon me in those rooms to understand where our own fit in the whole. And how do we fight for our own? By fighting for the whole. And I think I have a pretty good idea. But, you know, those who stand up and it's me, my, our versus we, us, they don't get as far and they don't get people to listen to them. So there's a collaborative piece to this. But I will also tell you this, I can't wait for the day to stand up and call the supervisor of officials and complain. about a call, because I do it all the time. And you have to advocate and defend when your students are put in a less than advantageous position.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube from the Pillar Exterior stage. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. A lot of stuff, interesting stuff there from Troy Dannon yesterday at his introductory press conference as Nebraska's new AD. Talked a lot about advocating for not just the University of Nebraska, but the student athletes as well. He said something early in his statement, and I think you know how my mind works a little bit, so I'm guessing you have an idea where I'm going with this, but we'll give it a shot here. One of the first things he said was, everyone in this athletic department is here for the good of the student athletes, not for the good of themselves. Mm-hmm. What do you think I took away from that?
You thought he was talking about Trev.
I did, in fact, think he was taking
you know what was funny, though, is Trev said the same thing.
Yeah, but actions and words.
You don't think – okay. So you don't think for however long until he left, mm-hmm. you don't think Trev was for the good of the student athletes?
I think a lot of the stuff he did was for the good of the student athletes. I think
this is the part that I struggle with.
Hold on.
No, wait, you asked me the question, right?
Yeah.
All right. So just let me finish this.
All right.
And then we go back and we take current evidence mm-hmm. to go back and look at past actions. He's only gonna get a few vantage points of the situation. Mm-hmm. So real time, he's getting secondhand information mm-hmm. or third-hand information.
Sure.
So I don't really allow myself to go there.
So let me frame that same situation differently.
Okay.
I look at it as, now we know more about Trev than we did before.
Okay.
Does that reshape any of the things that he did in my mind? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but I think it's fair to look back and say, hey, we got new information. Because here's an example, right? We heard a lot about the stadium project yesterday. Well, he was asked a lot about the stadium project. We didn't actually hear that much.
We definitely know that there were two sticking points.
Yes, stadium project for sure.
Stadium project and the alignment of the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. I don't think Trev apparently, like you could just he apparently didn't want to play the political game.
Yes. And there are, and I don't know how valid this is, I have heard from people that usually know these types of things mm-hmm. that there was a ton of contention over Trev's plans for the stadium project mm-hmm. and that a lot of people viewed it more as a vanity project for Trev to say, look what I got done, as opposed to something that, like, don't get me wrong, the stadium needs updated, right? Like I don't think anybody's arguing with that. But this specific plan, this $500 million plan that Trev put out there, a lot of people believed that it was a vanity project. And then you hear something like this and it says, okay, are there updates needed to the stadium? Absolutely. And that's what Troy said.
100% I could see we put two and two together. That's very
Is that fair?
Super plausible, super legit, which is significant. See, words matter and they're important. Mm-hmm. So, like, the first thing you said elicited the first response.
Yeah.
The second thing that you said, which was pretty well thought out.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, because I kind of agree with you. Because as I kind of look at this whole thing, mm-hmm. and the last couple of days, when Trev was here, and he was in Omaha, and he was with Christopherson, kind of just looking at all. Remember, I told the story, like they were kind of just looking at all the things that have been built and the growth of the campus, mm-hmm. and went by Talent that went by the ballpark and the athletic facility, and it got me thinking yesterday. And I knew he was a visionary, and I said this before a couple weeks ago. He likes projects. He likes casting visions, right? And so maybe for him, his stamp on
he wanted to make his mark.
His legacy was through the stadium project.
Yeah, he wanted to make his mark.
So I'll more than entertain that.
Yeah.
But let's not act. What I didn't want to do is say, you know what? like the stadium project wouldn't have been good ultimately for everybody. The price tag was exorbitant.
I think there's a version of the stadium project that is good.
So
for
what were we? So this is why I give pushback.
Yeah,
because it's not even. There's a fine line between, because somebody said this yesterday about the Dodgers. Was it Derry? Somebody said, "Well, you sound like a Dodger defender," and I'm like, it doesn't even have anything to do with the Dodgers. Like
when we were talking about Shohei.
Yeah. I didn't even bring up the Dodgers. What I like to do is I'm not just gonna be like, oh. Okay, yeah. What I'd like to do is, well, it could be this, it could be this. Let me think about this and then arrive at what I think it is. So I ask for people to do that too, because I want you to be like, don't be a sheep. Don't be a sheep. Because in one vein, we say, oh, can't trust the media, can't trust the media. They'll tell us anything. And then the minute we pump something out, like we take this like word is bond. Yeah. So like,
so it's also very funny who we consider the media and not the media. But that's a different story for a different day.
So where I'm going with this is, but I don't want to act like it wasn't about student athletes, because it 100% was.
Sure.
And the other thing is what were we thinking? Was he just pulling the wool over our eyes?
Who, Trev?
And we allowed it when he was sending out like focus groups and gathering information on what we wanted to see happen with the stadium project, because this is what drives me crazy. After yesterday, we're like, oh man, Trev is selfish. Okay, let's say you're right. Ravi, you're 100% right. The innuendos, it was a one-man gang. Were we just going along with what we wanted to see happen differently in the stadium? Now we joke about Wi-Fi. We used to bitch about Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Now we're like, maybe we don't want to be displaced. We don't want smaller seats. But we used to say 4 years ago, it was, well, people aren't coming to the games because this, and this.
Sure.
No, we sucked, so people weren't coming to the games. But let's not pretend that we weren't in on stadium renovations. We didn't know that it came with that kind of price tag. So then we got the pushback. And once he felt like he was pot committed, maybe he wanted to go through with the idea. Maybe it was personal and he wanted to leave his legacy on the university. But man, I hate when we act like we don't have any culpability. And then we come back and we like sling these arrows of righteousness like we weren't on board. And if in fact we were on board and we got the wool pulled over our eyes, then we, in the same vein that we're poking holes at the guy that left, we should say, you know what? We got to be more educated. We got to be wiser in what we do and what we gravitate towards, because you can't have the goose and kick the gander, right? It's like, it's a two-way street.
Sure.
If the feedback from the focus, all the mailers, hey, I got one. Did you get one? I got one. What'd you fill out? What did you fill out for the we did this.
Yeah.
Right? But we conveniently forget that this happened. And then we say, man, listen, I didn't know this thing was going to be a $450 million price tag. It's probably going to go north of that when they get ready to do this thing. Like, this is a bit too much.
Yeah.
This is a bit too much. Who was asking those questions when we had all of our wants?
Yeah.
I just think that's a fair question to ask. So I don't think I do like the fact, I do love the point that you said we know more information, because I know significantly more information even last night than I did whatever today is, and I Monday.
Think, and not just about Trev, but about the whole situation.
But everybody has their personality traits, right?
Sure.
And when we're scheduling, I'll just give you one. Moose, right? Competitive. Take on anybody, play anybody, anytime, anywhere. We were supportive of that. Were we not?
Yeah.
Bring them on. Then we looked at our schedule, and we weren't winning any games.
And we're like, hey, why don't we go get free wins?
So then we cried about the scheduling.
Yeah.
Like, those are the kinds of things that drive me crazy.
So I think a couple of the things can be true at the same time.
Of course, when you want to.
I think that the stadium obviously needs some work put into it, right? Everybody agrees with that. I think the price tag was a big hangup.
Mm-hmm.
What I've sort of landed on through some reporting's the wrong word, but looking into it and some sort of just logical deductions here is it seems like there is a different version of a stadium project that has a much more palatable price tag that would have been less of a vanity project than the one Trev pitch.
Yeah. We're afforded that luxury in the grand scheme of things
because we know more information now.
But it's clear that the lack of functioning capacities behind the scenes and the stadium project were the two sticking issues.
I also don't know that we knew at the time that there was that much contention over the stadium project. Because I know from my standpoint, I thought, well, if everybody's on board, I guess this is what's necessary. And maybe that's on me for not digging into it more at the time, but now we know more, so we think a little different.
Which is why I think the governor was there. It's aligned.
We will be back. To Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is Husker and Christopherson.
When my eyes were open, I walked into a restaurant. The give a darn factor has to be high. And sometimes that means people get out of shape pretty quick when things don't go their way. So be it. It sure beats them not caring.
We will be back. We will be back.
Get rid of Brunsey,
not,
too.
Don't worry. I'm not.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, BC. That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. We will be back here
That's a
with
lot
more
in there,
Hurrdat Sports
Ravi.
Radio coming up next on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
When people put as much time, effort, and energy into being as good as they can be, they deserve to win. They want to win academically. They want to win socially. They're committing time that as a college student, I never would have imagined I'd been capable of doing in order to have success. That's why the 335 or 355 people rather in this department have one commitment. And it is not to put themselves in a position to succeed, but it's to put those athletes in a position to succeed. We know what they do. The time, dedication, effort they give is something special.
We're halfway through the show here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I believe we are back and alive in the stream once again on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We appreciate
the natives were restless.
Listen, I take it as a compliment. I don't know that I want to be on their bad side of things because that could get a little hairy.
No,
but I appreciate their commitment to the show and them sticking through here.
Oh, come on, Shane.
And we're committed to the Omaha Supernovas. They play tomorrow night, Thursday, and at the CHI Health Center, 7 p.m. First serve. Go to supernovas.com for ticket information, schedule, merch, whatever else you need to know about the Omaha Supernovas. But go ahead and go get those tickets at supernovas.com. Listen, we talked to Coach Kuhn yesterday. Let's start working towards that sellout. All right, guys, let's see what we can do. Joining us now on the hotline is Andy Kendeigh of KETV. Andy, what's going on?
Hi, boys. My voice is really bad this morning, so I'm doing my best. I'm struggling through.
AK, who were you yelling at? Because I know you're not. It's not just normal conversation that's got you like that. Who's in the doghouse? Is Tyler not doing right again, or what?
I'm gonna say certainly not my kids. I haven't seen them in about 3 weeks. So,
you guys are going through that stretch, man. I feel bad for you.
It's they call it March Madness for a reason. So this morning, let me give you a little briefing. So Ben Smith, our photographer Ben Smith, who was with me last week in Memphis, had 2 days to do his laundry. Now he's on the road taking the same exact flight that we took last week to Detroit, except this time there's no connection with Matt Satilli. So they're actually just landing in Detroit this morning. So they're going to cover the Jays. And then Lauren Michelson, after coming back from Corvallis, she had a day to figure it out, and she's actually moving apartments during this stretch. So adding that to the mix. She's getting in a car with one of our newest employees, Eddie Messel, who is now going to take over as our weekend morning news anchor, but also has a sports background from his days in Lincoln. So Eddie and Lauren are headed up to Sioux Falls this morning to cover the Omaha hockey team in their first trip to the NCAA hockey tournament in a few years. So they're going to be up there, and I get to anchor the desk. So I may just hold up a sign saying, guys, take it away. So
so let me ask you something, AK. You're trying to settle in, and listen, Omaha's doing their thing in hockey. Our boss is arguably the biggest hockey fan maybe in the city, and I know he'll probably, he's not much of a fighter, but probably fight some guys over that title. You've got what's going on with Creighton that you just gave the rundown and the reference of what's going on. How do you know what you need to kind of gravitate towards if it's not something obvious, dare I say, like football?
Well, it's interesting too, DB, because how is this spring compared to every other spring that you've been a part of?
A lot more volatile.
Yeah.
It's a lot going on.
There's so much stuff going on. And normally this is spring football. We are in high spring football. We're breaking down the two deep and talking depth charts and who's going to be the first three wide receivers to line up on the first Saturday of the season. Instead, we're trying to prioritize what goes first, what goes second, what gets the best, the most shine on each particular day. The way I look at it normally is the closer to game day you are, the more shine you get. But that's also dependent on what kind of access we get. So, hockey has been a couple of years since we've been up there. So it's kind of more of an unknown quantity. Like, I'm not sure what Lauren's going to try and Eddie's going to track down today, but I'm confident they're going to get some good material out in Sioux Falls. And the thing about hockey too is there are far fewer media people who cover hockey than hoops. Basketball, especially when you get to that second weekend, it is every man and woman for himself, because there's a lot of media. You know, there's a lot. You guys saw it in Omaha this last week. Just multiply it by 2 or 3. So,
I'm gonna say this, AK, and give a shout out to, you know, McCarville, Brandon, and all the folks that got CHI ready with the media, the press. There, you guys have some horror stories, whether it was in Memphis or Pittsburgh. Like, we take how the media is treated and handled in this state for granted, but you can assure it's not like this everywhere else, is it?
No question about it. And
it's unbelievable.
It really is. And we were talking about it in Memphis too. You know, the Memphis setup, they were set up in where the Grizzlies play their games, and their practice facility is connected. And we were set up in where the practice facility is. So it was kind of it was a journey to get down to the access areas, which is locker room, floor, that type of thing. The setup that Omaha has for an NCAA tournament is as good, if not the best in the country. And the people they have running it is the best in the country. And I'm not just saying that because I live here in Omaha. I'm saying that because I've been all around the country covering these things. Yep. And this year was an interesting year too, because remember Rob Anderson, who normally was at home base at Omaha, he traveled with Creighton, so Glenn Sisk had to take over and their crew. And Glenn, it was like they didn't miss a beat. So props to that group. And we all know what a great job Rob does with Creighton and athletics. And it was from what I heard from people who, you know, our Des Moines people were in Omaha, they raved about the setup in Omaha. And Memphis wasn't terrible. It just wasn't Omaha. And I think Omaha is the gold standard. We talked about Troy Dannon yesterday and talking about the standard set or what have you. Well, the standard set in media in terms of setup for NCAA tournament, that's Omaha, Nebraska, in terms of the logistics.
We're talking with Andy Kendeigh from KETV. So with everything going on, have you not been going through the little Husker half-a-second video clips they're putting out and being like, hey, that kind of looks like a dime from Dylan Raiola, but I can't really tell? You're not Zapruder filming the little Twitter clips? Because I maybe have been just like a little bit.
I've seen day one. I saw day one the other day. I haven't seen since, but it is interesting to see. We'll get our glimpse tomorrow, of course. Not, you know, tomorrow's our first crack at it. You know, we'll have a video opportunity in the morning, and so we'll get our first chance to see Dylan Raiola and company, and it will be interesting to see how the layout, to see these guys in, you know, actual uniforms and helmets and doing football activities. It's been so much talk about this group of people. It'll be interesting finally to have some video on them.
Fun, or are you nervous? And you're not really approaching this from a fan as much as you're doing stories, but seems to be as many answers as questions, or whichever one you want to put first with this version of Nebraska football. Is that exciting?
I think so, because it goes back to who's leading the charge, right? And I think there's enough confidence in Matt Rule that I think there is reason to drink the Kool-Aid, you know. And the pieces that they have is exciting, especially, you know, I look at the wide receivers because that's probably one of the more obvious ones. I want to see what Jamal Banks is all about. You know, he's a big guy. I want to see him.
Yeah, a lot of buzz, isn't there?
Yeah, and I want to see what Isaiah Nair looks like, and see what the rest of the receiving core looks like. You know, because and obviously you got to see the quarterbacks throw the ball. You watching Raiola on tape versus watching Raiola in person is two different things. I can't wait to see with my own eyes tomorrow. And I think that you can't help but be excited about this team because they were so close last year, and you get the sense that this year could be a pivot point in the program. Now that they've figured out who their new athletic director is, I think we're headed in the right direction now after a couple weeks of uncertainty and head scratching.
That's Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Andy, we appreciate your time as always. Rest up that voice and maybe go say hi to your kids.
Yeah, no, the kids are at school. I'm gonna take a lot of it drink some tea. There you go.
There you go. Get that voice taken care of. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right.
Thanks, AK.
That's Andy
Thanks.
Kendeigh from KETV. That's it's a busy month. I know our people are running all over the place. It's been empty up at the office a little bit. Just me hanging out by myself. Just there's nobody to talk to. I'm like, well, maybe I'll go work from home and hang out with my dogs.
I mean, pretty stretched, right?
Yeah.
How about him just low key? You have a day and a half to do your laundry before you got bounced. Would you be stressed?
So I mean, you get a lot of laundry done in a day and a half.
Fudge, man.
Depends on how many people you got to do it for.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I mean, for me, a day and a half's plenty. But
yeah, hold it now.
Coming up next, we got Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. See if we can make a little money here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Now, Vegas insider, senior handicapper, and fan of the cold Budweiser bottles, Brian Edwards.
It's got to be touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
Brian Edwards.
I don't really love it.
Brian Edwards.
Were they using the cream cheese to butter the bagel?
Brian Edwards.
I'm going with the cowgirl.
Here is Brian Edwards.
We're wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla at the Pillar Exterior stage, and we are joined by our guy, Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider, MajorWager.com. B, what's going on, man?
It looks like he'll be here in a second.
Okay, cool.
Well, you know, Shane, I don't know if you know this, but see, Andy's still on our call screen. And I don't know if you meant the little guy from Toy Story, but that is not.
Is that his name? Yeah, well, I guess it was Andy, right? 'Cause he writes it on his shoes or whatever.
Andy. But as we await the arrival of one Brian Edwards. Wait, did you see who he has a future on at 40-1?
Oh, I did. I saw a little nugget there.
Were you the chicken? I think they're bringing hot and spicy ones back. Shane, are they bringing hot and spicy nuggets back?
Oh, that'd be nice.
I'm not really a spicy nugget guy. I just like the regular nuggets.
Aren't you a guy that eats boneless wings too?
Yeah, 100%.
Brian might be having internet troubles, so we're still trying to get him.
Okay, well that's fine. Yeah, 40-1. Creighton is 40-1.
I think that's from before. I think that was an earlier season play.
Might be nice. That'd be nice ticket to have.
It wouldn't be terrible. They're in pretty good shape at this point.
Are you? So I know you rev high, so this is super relative.
Sure.
How nervous are you?
Always nervous.
I know.
Always.
I know. Nelly, right? But you broke down the Oregon matchup, and I didn't love it, but I understood it. And you're right. What you typed was about the first 4 minutes of that game.
Yeah, they just couldn't make a shot.
Yeah.
Everything.
And I said the one thing that's not in that write-up was Oregon's confidence.
Yeah. And that worked. Cousinard, Dante, they had incredible games.
Although, I don't know.
What?
Dante's game was okay.
I mean, he ended up with incredible numbers.
The numbers were good.
I mean, Kalkbrenner got a lot of what he wanted against Dante. And I think that's going to be the case against most teams and most people. But I liked the matchup on paper against Oregon.
Do you like it against Tennessee?
I don't know. The defense worries me.
So trying to keep Ziegler
out of the paint, trying to keep on that two-man game.
Shane?
Yeah, we got B here.
All right. We'll finish that thought because I got some thoughts on Ziegler.
We will get to more Creighton here in a little bit. We've got Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. B, what's going on?
What's up, fellas? Sorry, I was looking right at you, and then my internet just clicked off right as y'all were coming back from the break. My apologies.
That's all right, B. We were talking about one of the future plays, or I think the only future play you sent us with Creighton. That's why you're not on them at all this weekend. When did you get that 40-1 future ticket on Creighton?
So I got it the day after you guys lost at home to Butler. I believe it was 99-98, and I tweeted it was readily available at 55 and 60-1, which had been, I'm pretty sure, the best price available all year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I want to say you're like 35-40-1 going into the year, if I'm not mistaken. And I saw y'all had lost to Butler at home, and I was like, oh, let me check this. And it was readily available at better numbers, but, I don't always get the best numbers, because the legal book here has a monopoly on the market, and hopefully that'll be changing by football next year. So, but I still got 40-1. I also have a Clemson 70-1, but I feel pretty stupid about that one. I got that one the day after they won at Alabama, but right now you can get Clemson at 85 or 90-1, and I got my silly little 70-1 ticket. But those are the only two. Or I'm sorry, and I also have a 10-1 on UConn. And I also bet UConn at 5-1 before the tournament started. So those are the only futures I have alive right now.
So, B, blowouts were aplenty this past weekend. You see another double-digit deal that's kind of caught your eye. They've been a wagon so far, man. What do you think about UConn?
Yeah, so, I would love UConn regardless, but the fact that they're playing in Boston, the fact that San Diego State played the latest game there was on Sunday night in Spokane, and then had to, do media, get back to San Diego, who knows what time in the morning, West Coast time, and they've got to play the earliest game across the country, and it's essentially a true road game for UConn in Boston, and that's the earliest game, and I guess they probably had to leave, late last night, I guess, late Tuesday night, or not late Tuesday night on the West. I imagine they got into Boston sometime late last night, and that's a quick turnaround. But look, UConn's just killing everybody. I mean, UConn was awful from 3-point land last week and still led by 30. Okay, yeah, they were 3 of 22 from 3, 13.6% against Northwestern last week. We're still up by 30 in the second half and win by 17. So I'm going with UConn minus 11. I still think that's a bargain. I got it at minus 10. I'm also, for a smaller amount, going UConn minus 6 in the first half. And I also like their team total over 73.5. They've scored at least 74 in 28 of 36 games. So I'm just really kind of going all in on UConn here. My bigger bet being minus 11, but also significant bets on UConn minus 6 in the first half, team total over 73.5.
B, you mentioned you've got a future on Clemson. They're a 7.5 point dog. Do you like them in this game too?
I sure do. So Clemson has been an underdog 9 times this year, and they are 8-1 against the spread in those games, and they've got 6 outright wins. And of those outright wins, they won outright at Alabama, at Pitt. They beat TCU in Toronto. They won at UNC. They got hosed by a horrible call at Duke and ended up losing by 1. Thought they should have won that one and covered as a dog in a 2-point loss at Memphis. And the impressive thing about Clemson last week was in 80 minutes of play, they trailed outright for only 30 seconds. And their best player, P.J. Hall, who averages 18.8 points, 6.8 rebounds, 1.6 block shots per game. Because of foul trouble, he was limited to 19 minutes apiece in each game. So he only played 38 combined minutes, and yet they were dominant against New Mexico and Baylor. They led by double digits most of the second half against Baylor. So I'm going to go Clemson plus 7.5 at Arizona.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So interesting on Clemson. They were 6-6 on the road, 500 in quad ones. They've got a quad 3 loss. They were a 6th seed, and here they are in the Sweet 16. Brownell is probably as underappreciated and misunderstood coach as there is in the country, because I'm not even sure Clemson fans know what to think about him.
And hey, he has been very close to a pink slip
multiple times.
A half dozen times. And hey, credit to Clemson's administration for sticking with him. And I won't be shocked if they win this game.
B, another one that we like here that we're looking at here is Illinois and Iowa State. Illinois, a short dog in that one. Who are you taking?
I'm going with Illinois. It's probably one of my smaller opinions, of all these games. But I just, Underwood finally got over the hump, getting out of the first weekend. That's the first time that he's done that. And so, I think when Illinois is playing really well, when they have their A game, I think they're about as good as anybody. Maybe UConn being the exception. I don't know if anybody's got anything for UConn, but not a whole lot of cute stats or analysis here, guys. I just prefer Illinois, but again, not one of my larger opinions of the weekend.
Right now, the money line is within about $15. Always an advantage in a situation like that. B, to take if you're getting the points. A lot of 1.5s now, but they're only minus 102 on the money line is Illinois.
Yeah, if it was like if they were a 2.5 point dog and you were getting like plus 125 or something, but I just would hate to get beat by one if I'm only trying to get a plus 110 payout. So I'm just, and I actually got it at 2.5 early in the week, but I would just take the 1.5, or maybe you can get a plus 2. I think there's 1 or 2 plus 2s offshore right now, but yeah, I think they went outright, but I just don't know that it's worth collecting just a plus 110 payout. So I'll take the point.
No, at the risk of them backfiring on me, this team is better than I think most people give them credit for. Although I agree, they were the weakest one. Carolina is very capable of winning a national championship, and they get another small number, 3.5, 4,
4.
Yeah. No, I agree with all of that, Damon. In fact, I think if there's any team that can beat UConn, I would probably say North Carolina may have the best chance out of all the teams that are left. They've won 10 of their last 11 games. 9 of those 10 wins are been by at least 5 points, which I obviously point out with the line being 3.5 or 4. You know, Alabama was struggling bad coming in the tournament, but they caught a really good draw, and their shots went down against Charleston. And Grand Canyon just couldn't make a shot against one of the worst defenses in the country. And so credit to them. You know, they kind of got a fresh start, fresh life. It's going to be a helter-skelter pace, which I think makes R.J. Davis is going to have a monster game. I like Carolina -4, and maybe a little bit of the first half, Carolina -2 as well.
Real quick, Beast, what do you think about Gonzaga?
Yeah, I like them as well. I'm going to go, look, they've lost to Purdue pretty handily back-to-back seasons, but I trust Mark Few. I like the Zags plus 5.5.
Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider, MajorWager.com. B, we appreciate your time as always.
Thanks, fellas. You have a great weekend.
We'll talk to you next week. We've got Jacob Padilla from Hurrdat Sports coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Now, basketball enthusiast and writer for Hurrdat Sports and Nebraska Preps, Jacob Padilla.
And he's like rolling in, and Shane goes, "Is that Jacob right there?"
Oh, that's a difficult question.
Jacob Padilla.
Yeah, I don't know how much I slept.
Jacob Padilla.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember if I ever dreamed.
Jacob Padilla.
I guess it might be a little different, like considering how wild it's been.
Here is Jacob Padilla.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on KFOR in Lincoln as well. It's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. Do we have Jacob, Shane? There he is.
Yep, he's here.
Jacob Padilla from
Hurrdat
Sports. What's going on, JP?
Good morning, guys.
JP, how we doing, bud?
Doing all right. Another week.
Well, your son's holding, I won't say firmly, but holding on to that. I think they're, are they 8 right now?
Yeah, and it certainly looks like your Lakers are coming for him with the 2 schedules the way that set up.
I don't know, JP. You know how I feel. Like, it's hard for me to trust Los Angeles. I have no idea how they did what they did against Milwaukee, except Milwaukee can't guard a soul, and Doc Rivers continues to get jobs. But, I mean, they did that without LeBron and all his crying to the officials last night. I'm like, what is going on? This has to be fixed.
Yeah, you talk about trust. I don't want to hear it. That's
yeah. So have you? Okay, you're so measured with your emotions. Are you starting to settle in that this KD era may go by and you don't have anything to show for it?
I mean, that's the entirety of my existence as a Suns fan. So it wouldn't be anything new.
It's also the entirety of KD's career outside of Steph Curry. So,
here we go. I forgot. I'm sitting next to the resident KD hater.
I'm just saying, hasn't won.
Arguably the greatest scorer in NBA history.
Who hasn't won a GD thing without Steph Curry? That's all I'm saying. Wow. He's played with a lot of good players. So I don't know.
See, you can't do that because you hate Russell Westbrook. You can't hold it playing a bunch of his career with Russell Westbrook against him.
No, I'm not holding that against him. I'm holding the rest of it all against him.
He was hurt the rest of the time.
Okay, so we're giving him credit for that. I'll give Bo Jackson credit for that. I'm not giving KD credit for that.
No, not giving credit. It's just like, all right, understandable. It didn't work out. It's not like he personally was the reason that they failed.
I mean, he played a lot with the Nets and nobody else decided to, so I don't really know what's going on there. I mean,
JP, have you realized that Dallas is 43-29?
I watched them play the other day. I actually kind of liked it.
But that can't work in the playoffs.
But like visually, it was better than it has been.
JP, thoughts?
Like they moved the ball a little better than they did in years past.
Yeah, so they're starting to put it together. They're the moves they've made have really kind of allowed them to become more of a complete team. Like what they're getting in the 5 spot between Gafford and Lively to go with Luka and Kyrie playing together more that team's going to be hard to guard. You got some shooters to put out there a little bit. Josh Green gives you some of the toughness, athleticism, defense type of things. So it's there. I mean, I still like top end talent level compared to some of the others in the West. Like, I don't think they're going to come out of the West or anything like that, but they're coming together just as a complete team, and tough to deal with just because of some of the moves they've made and how they worked out.
I low-key kind of like PJ Washington too.
Well, he's got a good role. It depends on if he accepts
his role.
Yes. Yeah. He's like fire, right? Like, as long as he's in the fireplace, he's pretty good. You get him out in the forest, he can torch the whole thing.
Yeah, he's a tough one because like he's capable of doing quite a bit at that spot, but he's not great at anything. Oh. So, like you said, it's kind of all right. How does he settle into the role, and what things does he kind of give you consistently? He does give them more options at that spot, just as a guy that can defend a little differently, kind of the tweener size there. Can defend a couple of spots. He can run a little bit of offense through him. He can go get a couple of rebounds. So he definitely. I don't know that he's like a super floor raiser, but again, it just helps them round out that rotation for them, and with something they didn't really have before.
JP, before we get to Creighton and Nebraska, I want to talk a little bit about local guys that are portaling and all the and you know, these high school guys almost as well as anybody, and a lot of rumors, a lot of innuendos, who's going where, who's playing what. Let's just stick with what we know. Only 2 guys are in the portal, that we know from Bellevue, regardless of what's out there. Go ahead.
Well, we're not firing any more coaches, are we, while we're here?
Wow. Greg Gard still has a job that we know of.
JP, I cleaned that up.
As far as we know, still has a job.
I cleaned that up.
Yeah, I almost texted you guys because I listen to podcasts. I don't necessarily
got versus getting got to me.
I almost texted you guys about it. I was like, wait a second, did I miss something over the weekend? Was I like my head buried in the sand?
Yeah, I had to go ahead and eat that one.
I held off and listened to the next segment though, so we're good. Just want to make sure because that could impact somebody, some other guys entering the portal. So as long as all the coaches are intact, let's go ahead.
Wow, and you know what? It wouldn't be a Padilla segment if he didn't get in a shot. He's gotten in 2 now.
I feel like you guys expect at this point, so I got to come ready.
That's true.
Why disappoint, Jacob? I mean, why disappoint? But you know, William Kyle III, obviously, and you know, because we did so much together with NEB preps, like it just seemed like, you know, I'm a huge fan, and obviously, of the way that Frankie attacked basketball when he was at Bellevue West. These guys have been fun to watch. How much? Because I know you'll be honest. How much of this evolution in their game do you feel like you saw coming relative to where they are right now?
That's a good question. I think they've certainly hit the high end of what I thought was possible for them at this point. All those 2, and then St. Thomas, obviously, in the portal as well.
He's going to be interesting. We'll get to him.
Yeah. I think guys that I think it's kind of shows the importance of fit and the journey, where you see a lot of discussion where these guys that end up transferring up later in their careers, and people talk about like Nebraska, Creighton missed them out of high school and all that, and I just think kind of the journey, like Baylor Shireman, we've talked about this before. Baylor Shireman doesn't become the player he is, I don't think, without taking the path that he did. Just with what he was able to do at South Dakota State, the way he was able to develop his game, have the freedom early on, go against the level of competition he did to kind of figure out, all right, who he is as a player at the college level. Then he made that leap to Creighton, and fortunately for him, he had the extra year to spend that second year to really kind of took that first year as an adjustment period. It was kind of more of a high level role player in the first year. Now this year he's an All-American. So I think that's probably true for some of these guys too. Like William Kyle, we know late bloomer in high school, and I mean he was a D2 guy even into his senior year, and then or through his 17U summer, and then obviously we started seeing some D1s come as well, just kind of take liking the physical tools and the potential upside there, even if he was a little undersized, but he surprised them early. Like South Dakota State did not expect him to play as much as he did as his freshman year, but he
plays so hard.
Yeah, and he's clearly put in work in the weight room there. Like just seeing him last weekend here in Omaha, like the physical development to kind of offset some of. He was maybe like 200 pounds coming out of high school, and now like he's solid. He can hold his own. He's fine playing the 5 and will be kind of wherever he ends up. Obviously, still a little undersized, but that in modern college basketball, like that works. There are rules for guys like that as long as you can play. And so it's I think kind of Frankie is another example of where he was allowed so much freedom early in his career that he was able to kind of figure out what works, what doesn't, and really focus on kind of developing certain areas of his game. And I think that all we saw, he had a lot of success early, and then that sophomore year was a bit of a step back. Like he didn't quite explode the way a lot of people were thinking, where, oh yeah, he's going to be gone high major after this year, all that type of stuff. And then he came back this junior year, and obviously with the new coaching staff and settled in, kind of figured things out, and he just exploded in Summit League play. And so I think the journey is really important for a lot of these guys. They found good fits for them to develop and to earn this opportunity now to where they can go challenge themselves somewhere else.
So as we're kind of watching this unfold, and I'll let you and Ravi get to Saint and some of these guys here in a second, but the more you watch this, and you coach summer, and I've seen these guys since probably 8, 9 years old. Have you ever been more convinced now than ever that we undersell like want to or competitiveness? Because both aforementioned guys, kind of the key to what they're doing is they just didn't ever want to take a back seat to anybody. Like we're talking about extremely competitive people. Even Saint, who had to take a little bit of time off to kind of figure it out. It was his competitiveness to want to get back into doing what he's doing after some setbacks that I know you can't measure it, but you know what it is when you see it, when you watch guys on the floor, right? One of the reasons why I like Alec Noonan, right? He was a steal, right? Because he's always going to compete, right? Like I just think we undersell it, JP.
Well, and that's part of this evaluation process. Like you said, there's not a box to check in terms of, all right, good 3-point shooter, gets to the line, super competitive. Like you can't necessarily see that without just being around and seeing them with their teammates, with their teams, the way they compete in the summer, the way they compete in the high school season, all that type of stuff. It's all part of the evaluation. It's one of those things that is with the portal. That's a tough thing to get as good of a feel for, as opposed to when you're kind of watching the kid over a couple of years and coming up through the ranks, because you are around him a little bit more. Like portal's you got to go quick. And I think it's portal recruiting is hard. And I think this is important. I hope that these guys that are looking to kind of move on and find a new program, I hope it goes well for them. Like fit is really important. And that's, I think, transition to the Saint conversation. Like he found a really good fit for him to allow him to kind of become the player he was this year. Obviously, it didn't quite work out at Loyola for a couple of reasons there. Mm-hmm. He, like you said, he took a step back, kind of reevaluated, came home for a bit, and then went back, got at it, and found a program where he fit with the coaching staff, he fit with the playing style, and was able to kind of blossom and explode as a player as a result. So we saw, I hate to say it, just kind of the way it went, but John Tonje, the season that he had, like he had a great career at Colorado State and decided, you know what, I want to use this extra year to go challenge myself at a high major level. And it just didn't work out at Missouri. Obviously, injuries were part of that.
I just saw him yesterday, by the way.
So it just, obviously, it's great that these kids have earned their opportunities. I just hope that all of them make decisions that put them in good positions to continue, especially because they are moving on from a place where it did click for them. So fit is everything in college basketball, and I hope these guys find good fits.
Big time, Jacob.
Jacob, let's talk about staying here for a minute because we were talking about fit. What type of situation do you think is a good fit for St. Thomas? Because, you look at a guy who puts up 20, 10, and 4 at any level of Division I, and you probably say, hey, anybody would want to take that guy. But I agree with you that fit's going to be really important. Where do you, not necessarily a school, but what types of situations do you see being a fit for him?
Have you seen him real quick recently, JP? He is so long.
Mm-hmm.
He's way taller than I ever remember him being. And he was a long guy. Like, he's actually grown, I think. I don't know if
like
his plate's
full 6'7" at least.
Man, his length is unreal.
Yeah, I helped coach him that 16U summer when he was like 6'4", and he just continued to stretch out since then. I hadn't seen. I'm actually going. I want to dive into kind of his season, his tape here. Probably try to do the same thing for William Kyle's. We kind of continue through this process here, just to kind of see what really clicked for them and what they did well, and kind of like I did with Frankie midseason and some of these other guys. Just kind of put a spotlight on the growth and what these guys have done. So I haven't quite, can't say I watched a ton of Northern Colorado games this year. But I know, I think just knowing Saint, like the coaching staff and the connection there is going to be important for him. And a coach that connects with them and understands his game and how to put him in a good position. I think that will be as important as anything style wise and all that. But he is a guy that really good rebounder. He crashes the offensive glass hard. You talked about that size, and he can pass. You can play through him. So it's a school that I'll be curious to see kind of and obviously he's going through the draft process as well. I think that'll be interesting, kind of just what comes out of that, what kind of feedback he gets there. I do think he'll end up staying in college. You just why not take a shot to kind of see what the feedback is, because you get multiple chances at it if you want it. But yeah, he's a guy that you can run offense through. So I think a team that you've got shooters around him that he can find, shooters, cutters, a guy that can play through kind of the mid post and the low post and step out and shoot a little bit. So he's a versatile piece that could probably fit a few different, I guess, systems.
I mean, what you're describing sounds a lot like a good fit for hometown Creighton. A little bit. They're losing a guy in Baylor who does a lot of those things. Obviously, Saint, not the level of shooter that Baylor is, but good positional rebounder.
Once upon a time he was too, though.
You can play through him a little bit in terms of he's a good passer, probably not maybe not the same level of passer as Baylor, but it sounds like, just as you're describing it, checks a lot of the same boxes that they may look for out of a 3.
Jacob, Ravi wants Creighton to get everybody.
I do want Creighton to get everybody, and I've always loved St. Thomas. Jacob knows this about me.
Yeah.
Yes. Newer North guy, so of course he does.
And he's and outside of Jacob Arope, he's got one of the best smiles in all of high school
Reunite my
sports.
guy Jason Green and St. Thomas. Let's do this.
The good news is I think Creighton's done a really good job of due diligence with local guys, whether it's portal coming out of high school. So I think they've done a great job of evaluating fits and deciding whether or not a guy would be a good fit for them, and then pushing hard for it if they do. They're not just throwing out offers just because, it's a local guy, we just put a name in the ring, but not actually recruit the guy. Like they're gonna look hard and decide ultimately. I mean, they're going through that process right now with Frankie. Met up with him a couple of times, had him in down on campus a couple of times just to kind of have those conversations and see kind of what the potential fit might be. So I would assume Creighton will evaluate and decide whether he's a fit. It's kind of similar to Frankie a little bit. He's kind of probably a tweener positionally between that 3-4. That would be kind of the one concern is like, all right, does he just positionally and ability to defend and that type of stuff, like how does he compare to the guys they've already got coming in? as opposed to more of a true like bouncy athlete on the wing type of deal. Especially where Creighton's in a tough spot right now is just not 100% sure what they're going to need next year because they've got some decisions hanging out there. You're going to have to replace Baylor. That's the one thing that you know for sure. And then beyond that, it's up in the air. And obviously, you've already got the young kids coming in that you feel pretty good about. And I think we'll see Larry Johnson, Jackson McAndrew play right away. So kind of have to factor those guys into what the potential rotation might look like. But yeah, I think Saint's a guy that Creighton will take a look at and see, all right, can he fit in this? Frankie, does he fit in this? I don't think they're going to keep themselves to just the local guys, but obviously that's a tie-in, and any advantage that you have in recruiting is big. So it's certainly worth evaluating.
Speaking of fit, William Kyle III would be an amazing fit at Nebraska. Like, I could see that tomorrow, right? Yeah. I sell the little kind of head deal, but the rim runner, the shot blocker,
he brings definitely that's something they were really lacking at that spot. And I think you got to decide kind of Matar Jope and like how long-term that development is. Like that's Williams more ready to play right now than what we saw of Matar last year. Matar's got a little bit more size there, but they desperately need to get some athleticism, some more defensive ability at that spot. And the rim runner would be nice. Like if they probably need a point guard to kind of run a little bit more pick and roll and do some of that. So Bryce Williams isn't overtaxed at that spot, but certainly a rim running, rim protecting. And the thing about William, and this is the thing that I was always the most impressed by, and the thing that stood out to me is just his ability to move his feet at that spot and live up on switches, hedge ball screens, trap ball screens. I know I didn't study closely exactly what South Dakota State looked like early in the season versus later, but he had a stint where they moved to the bench. They were trying to figure out what worked, played off the bench for 10 games, and then got back in the starting lineup. And part of that was they kind of switched the way they were defending. They switched their scheme, and coaches said it fit him better, and he was kind of really able to take off from that standpoint. So he provides a completely different aspect to anything that Nebraska's had. And if there's anything we learned from that Texas A&M game, they need to upgrade the athleticism and just kind of the defensive versatility ability because they were not able to hold up with what they had been trying to do against a team like A&M.
Just a couple minutes here, JP. You talked about defensive adjustments and athleticism. You're going to see a lot of two-man games with Tennessee, and the stats are what they are, right? Rim percentage, defensive rim percentage, three-point percentage allowed. It's truly something's got to give here. How does Creighton, in your opinion, defend Ziegler in the two-man game and keep him from getting to his spots on the floor to run that offense?
Yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup because, like, you look at Tennessee as a whole, and they're not elite at any one thing on offense. They're good to above average at a handful of things, and it ultimately equals out as a top 30 offense on KenPom. But kind of the one thing that really stands out is their assist rate. Almost 61% of their field goals are assisted this season, which is 13th in the country. And Creighton's defense is just kind of as a side effect of the way they play. Teams often have low assist rates against them with that drop coverage and the way they're kind of forcing guys into creating on their own and taking those tough shots. So be really curious to see how Creighton does handle a lot of those Tennessee actions. They run a lot of pin downs and stuff to play through, connect, to get him good looks coming off screens, that type of stuff. So how kind of the battle of those two play out will be interesting, just in terms of kind of how they what Creighton tries to take away and what Tennessee tries to do. That'll be a fun battle for sure. And then on the other end, obviously they're one of the best in the country, although they don't take away threes. Teams shoot really 42% 3-point rate almost against them. well above average. They just don't shoot them well. So that's always hard to read. Like, is that shooting variance, or are they really good at contesting even if they're giving them up? But the 3-point looks will probably be there for Creighton if they execute. It's just a matter of can they knock them down.
Jacob Padilla, Hurrdat Sports. JP, we appreciate your time as always.
Yeah, always good to talk to you guys.
Thanks, JP.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
A volleyball special here. I will tell you the highlight of the day was my daughter getting that volleyball jersey standing up at the front today. She will wear that thing for days and days and days in school. Volleyball fan, but she knows what Nebraska volleyball is as well, let alone what happened inside the stadium last year. But there isn't a sport here that can't be Nebraska volleyball. There is not a sport here. And if we don't get there, we have to be introspective and figure out why. And it's not a criticism or condemnation. It's what do we have to do to become Nebraska volleyball? And they give us, I talk about standards to set. And every decision we make, every action we take, we should set the standard that others aspire to achieve. It's not just externally, it's internally as well. So how do we all meet the standard that Nebraska volleyball has shown us inside the department?
We're back here at Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln, live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are here on the Pillar Exterior stage, and I need to remind you, just got one more day. You've got till March 28th to get entries in for your prop card challenge, that $100,000 prop card challenge through Warhorse Casino. A $50 sportsbook wager or 50 points earned on slots or racing gets you an entry into that $100,000 prop card challenge for the semifinal and final of the tournament games. Get 18 or more correct of your 25 prop questions, and you are eligible for cash and prizes. Any questions, go to warhorsecasino.com. And remember, Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. DB.
He said, remember. I won't forget, Ravi.
I'm trying not, you got to remember our friends. We love our friends.
Hello, friends. Hello.
We love our friends at Warhorse. Trying to win us a little bit of money, just like our guy B. Edwards was trying to win us a little money. And before I totally change gears here, has there been anything today that you wanted to get to that we didn't get to yet, or that you wanted to expand on more?
No.
Okay.
Those are usually questions I would say for off air.
Well, listen, we're doing a live program here.
No. I mean, the transfer portal is interesting, though, because we talk about all this movement. And I got the question yesterday where I think somebody asked, it was either a DM or might have been in our stream, where if it would be a good idea for Coach Hoiberg and Nebraska staff to say what they need and set the parameters in the transfer portal in terms of money. Like Coach Rule did to set the level.
This is what it costs for quarterback?
For quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Could you see, is that in, do you think, could you see that in Coach Hoiberg's temperament?
Maybe.
Is there enough of an established going rate?
So that was my question. I don't know if the numbers, I feel like the numbers are more fluid in basketball.
Okay.
And whereas football, it's like, hey, if you're playing big boy football, you need a Power 5 starting quarterback tomorrow, this is what it's going to cost you. That seems pretty established. I don't know if that's the case in basketball. I think we're a little bit more all over the place on what a going rate is. So that would be my hesitation more than it's not in his personality.
I just wonder if he, at a presser, he could say that, hey, listen, we're
I need $500,000 for a shooting guard.
We're looking for a new, point guard or shooting guard, and this is kind of what it's been costing, and so we're doing cost analysis.
Yeah, like
can you imagine those kinds of discussions just being had outwardly?
Like, hey, 1890, I need $500,000 for a
Well, I do think there's a reason that collectives were mentioned yesterday.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Right? Like, that's fairly intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you have to, even if you don't necessarily see eye to eye on every single thing with whoever's running your collective or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You still have to be able to work with them. You still have to be able to.
I still don't know why we keep making it about that, though. Like, let's just say this, whether it jives with our state philosophy in terms of giving money for this when we're kind of a hardworking, earnest state.
That's not what I meant.
I think it has a lot more to do with who's running it. I don't even get into that. I don't even think that's a big deal.
I just mean it. Which part you don't think is a big deal?
Well, I don't. So I don't think it's a big deal on who's running the collective.
No, I don't think it should be.
I think clarity of what the collective is doing is more the thing.
You have to get on the same page between the athletic department and the collective to say, hey, this is what we need. I know you can help us accomplish this. Now, and those should be things that everybody can agree on, right? Because they're pretty simple. Like the collective is trying to help Nebraska athletics win. Yeah. So we say, hey, this is
that's a total Verzal thing.
Ideally, right? Like that's what it should be about. That's really the only reason a collective should exist. Right? I mean, there's no.
I was waiting for you to answer your own question again. That's you guys.
There's no purpose to
it's
it,
always
right?
funny. Like he'd say something like, "Hey, Davey, you're on your way to go get gas, yeah?" Like,
I think it's a Midwest thing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Are you from the Midwest?
I was born and raised here.
Okay. Air down.
But the
hurt knuckle.
So the it shouldn't be that hard to get everybody on the same page. Yeah. Now, the mechanics of how that actually works, then you can work out some details, right? But the same page would be, hey, we need to use this to get better players to help us win. That's it.
But weren't you kind of a little like refreshed that they actually used the word that we use on this show quite a bit, retention.
Recruiting and retention.
That's more what it's about for Nebraska.
Retaining coaches or retaining players or both? Because he brought coaches up specifically.
Well, I know, but like with the portal, we look at it as who can we get.
And
I think Nebraska.
Who can we keep?
I think Nebraska is going to look at this going forward as more as who can we keep. Like we can't until we win, we can't be viewed as this stepping stone place where schools that have a chance to win can come in and say to a Tommy Hill, "Hey, you know what? Really like to have you."
How do we balance that with this idea that we've put out there, and by we I mean you and I have put out there about Nebraska being able to use relationships and making it a place you want to be to combat the transactional nature of some college football?
I think NIL is not necessarily an emergency break glass, but it is a safety blanket. The goal or the I think the main focus point is to have this be a place that you're treated so well. And NIL is part of that. I mean, look at Creighton as kind of a model. Like it was really, really hard for Sharif to leave.
Yes.
Like he really had to pit, gosh, I'm comfortable. This is pretty good. This is a cool setup. I like the way that I'm treated versus I just want more minutes. Right?
Which he wasn't going to get here.
I think that's what Nebraska football is after.
So is it, in your mind, is it one of those obstacles that Dannon is talking about putting out of the way? Because listen, if you love it here, absolutely love it.
Look how many guys that aren't from here like do business here.
Yeah. But I mean, let's say you love it here. It's your favorite place. You love how you're treated. You love Coach Rule. And let's say they win next year. But you're only getting $100,000.
Yeah.
And somebody else is saying, hey, we got 5 for you over
So
here.
what you do is you
take
the $400,000 difference and you're like, do I want more money to deal with the unknown or with what I'm doing?
Whereas
am I good where I can still get to my goals?
Whereas Nebraska can, let's say, get you to 400,000, and so it's only 100,000 difference.
Numbers are way too big, by the way, but go ahead.
I'm just throwing numbers out here, right? I'm just picking numbers. It doesn't matter. Like
I'm not very good with numbers.
This is a monopoly money situation here. Like in this discussion,
my sister was always better at me than that.
Right? Like
I still think she cheated.
Well, that's how things get done.
Here's 5 for you. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for me.
But you know what I mean? So like if the gap is, hey, I'm 80% of the way to what somebody else is offering versus I'm 20% of the way to what somebody else is offering.
It's like
then
adults,
you just eliminated an obstacle.
How much is peace of mind worth?
It should be a lot.
Okay. So
not as much as people
that has a value.
Yeah.
Right? Like
it's hard to put a monetary value on it, but it has a value.
Yeah.
Right.
I just dealt with this in November and December and January. How much is a peace of mind worth?
Yeah.
Versus compensation.
For sure. And right. I think that's where that to me is where NIL is an obstacle to eliminate in terms of not getting rid of NIL, but getting rid of the discussion of, oh, well, I can make so much more at this other place.
Yeah. I kind of look at it. I hope this is what I hope. Right. This could be a total pipe dream. If you could have an acquisition and retention silo and keep them separate, that'd be cool. right? Like this is over here for acquisition.
This is for retention.
This is over here for retention. We're not going to do this acquisition thing. That's the emergency break glass.
Yeah.
It's not out of the other pot. Maybe that's too myopic, but I would love to see that. Like, this is everyday life. Because we'll learn to get an appreciation for life just being good, people valuing you, and you having the opportunity to succeed versus going to chase this. Typically, we don't learn that to adults until we're adults, and some of us still don't.
Some of us never do.
But at some point, you'd like to instill that in young people, too, because it's part of combating greed.
And
grass isn't always greener.
Part of the education process, right, to be a whole person.
100%.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
The reason I got involved in all the governance stuff when I was at Tulane was to understand the mechanics of what really happens and how it happens, to understand who the players are, who the voices are that are respected, to understand when we need to get something done, who do I call instead of just throw up my hands in frustration. And so I've been probably as deeply and as thoroughly involved in NCAA governance over the last 5 years as anybody in the country. So, one, it's helped build a network, but two, it's helped understand how to navigate that network, because the NCAA Charlie Baker has his hands full. He has a group of schools who have almost nothing in common, but we're trying to govern them to a commonality. And I really respect Governor Baker and respect what he's trying to accomplish. I think it's a very tough environment.
Pretty savvy right there, Ravi.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla on the Pillar Exterior stage. It's also pretty savvy to get involved with the Team Jack Foundation.
100%. I love
TeamJackFoundation.org. All you need to do is go to TeamJackFoundation.org to give directly to the cause, to find out what events are coming up, and see what other opportunities are available. It's a simple goal, but like DB and I always say, simple doesn't mean easy. Certainly not easy to find better treatments for kids fighting brain cancer and one day a cure, but it is a very simple goal. That's how you can trust that your money's going in the right direction. Over $12 million and counting to date, and it's going to places like Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Memorial Sloan Kettering, Columbia University, and of course, University of Nebraska Medical Center as well. TeamJackFoundation.org is where you can find out more about the projects they work with and to get involved. That's TeamJackFoundation.org. Wanted to.
It's official.
What's up?
Before you get going.
What's up?
Just last night late, I think the report broke. Cal will be back at Kentucky.
Cal? Yeah, so I'm glad you brought Cal up, because
Mitch Burkhardt.
We've had some more movement on the coaching front, which is where I wanted to go here. Danny Sprinkle to Washington out of Utah State.
It's a great hire. We thought he'd be on the move.
Yeah, Mark Byington from JMU to Vandy. It's a good hire for Vandy. I don't know if it's a good move for Byington.
What is Jerry Stackhouse going to do with all those suits?
I don't know.
Big Stackhouse guy.
Maybe it's his TV job. He can wear them.
Yeah, he's like, DB, get over your Carolina infatuation. Is that what you want to say?
No,
Shane's over here. Shane's over here laughing.
I think Vandy's a really hard job.
It is.
If I was Byington, I maybe would have waited for something else. That's just me.
I understand.
JMU, I think that's a place you can keep winning at for a little while.
Appear to have generated a ton of revenues in the coffers to operate as a Division I athletic department now.
They are probably going to be the model for which people look at when they're transitioning into Division I athletics.
Remember a long time ago, it used to be schools like Denver. You're like, ooh, how does Denver do it?
Yeah. Now it's JMU.
It's Grand Canyon. It's like, ooh, how does Grand Canyon do it? It just keeps evolving because they're doing it they did it in football.
Yes, which is hard to do. That's way harder to do than it is to do in basketball. But it got me kind of traveling down this road, right? Because, Dusty May go to Michigan. Coach DeVries go to West Virginia. We've had a lot of movement. Coach Cal staying put at Kentucky at least for another year. And so I kind of got down this rabbit hole because we were having a discussion mostly off air about how I wasn't sure if Dusty May was a good hire at Michigan, because it seemed like they were giving a lot of credit to that Final Four run at FAU. Not to say that he's a bad coach, but I think that elevated him to a place to get jobs that maybe he wouldn't have been in that conversation with before. So I went back and looked all the way back to the expansion of the NCAA tournament in 1985. There have been 27 different head coaches to win a national title since then. Out of those 27.
27 out of the 39 years?
Yes. If I can count correctly, which is, it's possible I'm off by one or two.
Well, 85 and 15 get you to the double zeros.
Yes.
And then you're in 2024.
And you've only had a handful of guys win more than one. So that sounds about right.
Okay.
So 27 different head coaches.
Seems low.
Well, you've got Krzyzewski's got multiple. Calhoun's got multiple. Self has multiple.
Roy Williams has multiple.
has multiple.
4, 6, 8, 12.
That's a self has multiple. Like you've got a lot of guys with multiples in there. But out of those 27 guys, I looked at where they were and how much success they had before the job where they won a national title. Only 6 of the 27 made a Elite 8 appearance at a previous stop before the job where they won a national title. Only 3 of those did so at a non-power conference school. So 3 of the 27, 1 out of every 9,
okay,
made even an Elite 8.
Do you know who they were?
Yes, I've got it right here.
It was Billy Donovan, one of them?
Billy Donovan, it was not one of them.
Okay.
Here's the guys. Jerry Tarkanian, and he made 2 Elite 8s before the tournament expanded, but I counted him.
Okay, so
those
he
were at
came
Long
from
Beach State.
Okay, yep.
Rick Pitino had the Final Four at Providence, but he went to New York Knicks between Providence and Kentucky.
Fair.
Still counts,
yeah,
but it's a little different.
Pitino was going to be one of the guesses. I would not have got Tark.
Lute Olson made a Final Four at Iowa.
Would not have got Lute Olson.
And that was again.
Can you believe they got rid of that guy?
At Arizona? Or at Iowa. At Iowa, yeah.
I mean, but it is the same school. They got rid of Alford and Tom. I mean, different reasons.
Yes.
It's a lot of good coaches to let walk.
Yes. And his again was before the expansion, but it counts. Roy Williams made 4 Final Fours and an Elite 8 at Kansas before going to UNC.
He was the easiest.
100%. One. Bill Self made an Elite 8 at Tulsa and at Illinois.
Forgot about Tulsa.
And then Calipari made an Elite 8 and a Final Four at UMass. Made 2 Elite 8s and a Final Four at Memphis before winning a national championship at Kentucky. That's the whole list. Only 3 of those guys one got to an Elite 8 at a non-Power 5 school before winning a national championship. How many guys do we look at that get big jobs because they make a run at a non-Power 5 school or non-Power 6, whatever I consider Big East in there, so Power 6. How many of these guys do we see getting those jobs? And there is really very little track record
of them of it panning out.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Only 3 guys did it at a non-power school, and only 2 of them since the expansion of the tournament. 2 out of 27. So in the modern tournament,
the two were
Calipari and Self. Self at Tulsa, Calipari at UMass.
2 guys that we consider, well, one for sure. One we used to up until probably 16.
All-timers?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So to hit it, so we're basically talking about hitting an all-timer.
You have to be a super outlier.
Right?
Yes. If you're going to hire a Dusty May or an Anfield didn't make an Elite 8. But if you're going to hire one of those dudes, if you're going to hire a Shaka Smart.
Wait, FGCU lost in the Elite 8, right?
They lost in the Sweet 16. They made a Sweet 16. They didn't make an Elite 8. Okay. So you're talking about you gotta be hoping you get an all-timer if that's gonna work out for you the way you want it to.
Numbers say
I pray you're probably not going to.
That is fascinating.
I went down a rabbit hole yesterday.
I mean, that is absolutely fascinating.
2 out of 27 since the tournament expanded. 2.
And it's Self and Cal.
And Self, Kansas didn't hire Self because of Tulsa. They hired him because of Illinois. Yeah. So that's even a little bit of an outlier.
I know. You allowed, but
and
I allowed, you kept it consistent though, because if they had a stop in the middle,
I still counted it.
You still counted it.
But even the 2 guys, Bill Self and Calipari, both had other stops before the place.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and so I will say Calipari did go from Memphis to Kentucky directly. So that's the closest one.
Yeah, but I meant New Jersey from UMass.
Yeah. Right. But I mean, from the place that he was to the place he won a national title.
Those awkward Marcus Camby press conferences. But that guy had Lou Rowe, Edgar Padilla, and Marcus Camby all on campus
at UMass.
Yeah.
But that's like you've really got one guy that went from non-Power 5 job where he made a run to Power 5 job and won a national title at his very next stop. You've got one guy.
So the consternation for you is
I think they overvalue the tournament run.
You've been on that too.
Now, part of it's probably because I'm a Creighton fan. We didn't have a lot of tournament success for a while.
Yeah, and
But that didn't make me think.
I thought the real catalyst was kind of the,
For this
the
discussion,
DeVries thing.
Yeah, for this year, it's because the Dusty May versus Coach DeVries.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I'm Michigan, I'm not 100% sure I think Dusty May is a better basketball coach than Darren DeVries. I just don't.
Well, but I think I agree with you,
Right.
though, right? Because we were leaving last week, and I was like,
you think you take DeVries?
Statistically, I take DeVries, right? There's only 6 guys. I mean, he's in top 5 winning percentage of
and those
all
are the guys,
coaches since
those are the
2017.
guys that typically succeed, guys that had a long run of a track record of success.
Thank you, Rob. Rainman Anderson.
Somewhere, right? Guys that had long track record of success, didn't necessarily break through in the tournament, and then at their next job where they've got more resources, more access to better players, things like that, then they break through. That's the track record. You're better off hiring a Darren DeVries than you are a Dusty May. That's the history.
So there's a couple of guys, though, in there that I actually like that I'll be a curious case study. Because I like Sprinkle.
But he hasn't made an Elite Eight.
I know.
So that's a great example of what you would want to hire.
Yeah.
Same thing with Mark Byington, right? If you like him.
Yeah.
But that's a more similar.
And I'm just not sure, like how long are we going before we're saying, oh, okay, this is pretty good?
That's fair. I'm going to look at how long he's been. Well, I guess the show's over. That's all right. We've, but I want you to noodle on that for a minute.
I am, because now I
mean, he had a pretty good long run at Georgia Southern.
Now I'm hooked.
Before going to James Madison, I mean, we're talking 10 years of success.
Okay. That sounds
before
about right.
Going to Vanderbilt and no Elite Eights in the bunch there. I think we overvalue the tournament run when hiring coaches. Does Shaheen Holloway get a job? I know it was no Elite
Eight. I look
at
the Indiana State job, and I'm like, he came from the D2 level without any of those miraculous runs, and he's proven to be pretty good too.
More Hurrdat Sports tomorrow.